Hi and welcome to Leitrim Daily. My name is Earley and you're listening to episode 239 of the podcast, and it is the weekly sports preview show. Now, I can hear you ask, how can we have a sports preview show when all of our sport has been cancelled? And yes, that's kind of correct. All of the local sport has fallen by the wayside due to the lockdown and the stage 3 restrictions, or the level 3 restrictions that have been implemented across the country. But we do still have some elite sport taking place in soccer, rugby and Gaelic Games across the country, and we have representation in all of those this weekend. We do start with a bit of good news, and that is that the National Football League and National Hurling League fixtures have been announced as part of the GAAGO app, now available in the Republic of Ireland and the North of Ireland. So Leitrim supporters will be able to watch both the hurlers and footballers, not this weekend but next weekend on that. The announcement came out during the week, and so you can see for €5 charge behind a pay-per-view wall, you'll be able to see the hurlers in action in the Connacht Centre of Excellence on Sunday week in the Division 3B final in the National Hurling League, while in Division 3 of the Football League, down of course being the venue, Park Esler in Newry next Saturday evening, and Leitrim the visitors there. So you can stay at home, stay safe from all of the coronavirus breakouts all over the country, and you can watch the game and you won't miss a second of the action. GAAGO is the app to check out there. You'll find that if you Google it, all the information should be available over the coming days. So get yourself on board with that if you want to watch the GAA action over the next couple of weeks. I believe they will also be including the final round of fixtures. That would include that Division 3 clash, Leitrim versus Tipperary, at home here in Avantgarde Park, Sean McDermott, on Sunday week, the 25th of October. That's Monday, sorry, that's Sunday 2 weeks, the 25th of October. And the Nicky Rackard Cup quarter-final, Armagh versus Leitrim in the Athletic Grounds in Armagh at 4 o'clock on Saturday, October the 24th. So remains to be seen if they've been officially announced, but the early indications are that those games will also be available through that app. To run through the rest of the fixtures that we currently have in the calendar, this day 2 weeks, Friday, October the 23rd, sees the Connacht Minor Football Championship, Galway versus Leitrim, and that will be played in the Centre of Excellence in Ballyhonus in County Mayo that evening. So the very best luck to Brendan Guckian and his charges in 2 weeks' time as they start their championship campaign. The following weekend, obviously, that will also include the Nicky Rackard Cup quarter-final against Armagh and that league clash with Tipperary, but it's the following week. All attention will focus on Mayo being the championship big game for Leitrim as they look to progress past what is a fairly big obstacle in a new look knockout championship in Connacht. In terms of the ladies football, their season starts in a very simple 3-horse race for one spot into an All Ireland semi-final, and they face Meath on the weekend of the 7th or 8th of November, exact details to be confirmed, and the following weekend they face a trip to Down. So interesting times ahead for the ladies as well, but plenty of action across the playing fields of Gaelic football, ladies football and hurling in coming weeks, and the best luck to everybody. We'll be keeping an eye on all of that on the sports preview show and the sports roundup show every Monday, and of course the preview show on the Friday before every weekend's action. No Gaelic Games as such this weekend, but just some good news in terms of being able to keep track of what's happening over the coming weeks. In terms of rugby, we are going to be having a more in-depth discussion with Jack Gilheany in just a couple of moments about his experience of breaking into that Old Belvedere squad in Division 1B of the AIL this season, but currently preoccupied with the Energia Community Shield, a cross-country competition that's been run in each of the 4 provinces on his side. They've struggled to get to grips with it so far this year. He's been an integral part of that team. He's broken into the side. He came on at half-time in the first round, played the full 80 minutes last week, and will be expected to play again this weekend. In terms of the actual fixtures of Leitrim interest in the Connacht division, Sligo are out against Ballina. They face the trip over to Heffernan Park in the first clash between these sides this season. Sligo, of course, getting the double over them last year. 2 fairly heavy victories for the Sligo men in both those games last year, and they will be expecting something similar. Sligo at the moment top of the table, Ballina struggling at the bottom, and of course Matthew Earley will be involved for Sligo in that game. Jack Gilheany, as we mentioned, expected to play a part in the clash between Old Belvedere at Old Wesley tomorrow afternoon. The very best of luck to Jack. As you mentioned, they're currently 9th out of the 9 sides in that division. Old Wesley sit in 5th place, but very early days to be worrying about table position just yet. The best of luck to Jack and to Matthew Earley this weekend in that Energia Community Series. We will be talking to Jack in a lot more detail about the clash between Gaelic football and rugby and how he manages that, and I suppose some of the reasoning behind why he's made the choices he's made at different stages of his career. In terms of soccer, no representation this weekend at senior level in either men's or women's football. It's a strange one because Sligo Rovers due to play Derry this weekend, but the game brought forward because of international call-ups, and that means that Niall Moran, no competitive action this weekend in the Bit of Red, while Dervla Byrne and her Peamount United, after 2 or 3 big weekends of victories, they have weekend off. They're idle. 9 teams in that division, 4 fixtures, 1 team can't play, and this week it happens to be their turn, so they'll be hoping that other teams will do them favours as they go through the fixtures. But let's have a look at all the fixtures across all the competitions in soccer this weekend. In the Premier Division, Bohemians versus Cork City this evening at 5:45, while tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. kickoff, Waterford play Shelbourne, and Tuesday it's Cork City versus Dundalk, that game at 7:45 in Turner's Cross. So next weekend we have also Dundalk versus Bohemians, Shamrock Rovers versus Derry City on Friday, Cork City versus Waterford on 5 p.m. on Saturday the 17th of October, while St Patrick's Athletic are the visitors to Finn Park as Finn Harps host them. 7:30 the kickoff in that game. We have to wait till Sunday the 18th of October for the next Sligo Rovers game as they travel to Talca Park to take on Shelbourne. At the moment, the league table sees Sligo in 5th place, and with the teams below them not playing for the next couple of days means they can't drop a position, and unless St Patrick's Athletic take an awful hiding, they will not drop below them in the table either. So Sligo probably in 5th place for the next little while at least, although Dundalk do have a load of games in hand. I think they have 3 games in hand at this stage. Their European exploits have kept them occupied on that front. In the First Division, Longford Town make the trip to Cabinteely today. They'll be hoping for a win to reinvigorate their promotion campaign. Currently 6 points off the top of the table with only 3 games remaining. Defeat today and a draw or a victory for Bray Wanderers versus Shamrock Rovers, which would be expected, will leave them feeling very, very tight in their chances of getting through. Realistically, Bray Wanderers should beat Shamrock Rovers, and with their extra goal difference, should see Longford Town eliminated from that title campaign today. Win, lose or draw this evening. But Longford will be looking to get the best possible playoff draw, so every result counts, and it's fairly tight there around that 5th and 6th spot. The top 5, of course, qualifying for the playoffs. So the best of luck to Longford Town in their clash with Cabinteely this evening. In fact, it would put them guaranteed into the playoff spots if they were to win today. In the Women's National League, the full set of fixtures this weekend: DLR Waves versus Wexford Youths, Cork City Women's FC versus Galway Women's FC, Bohemians versus Athlone Town in the battle of the new teams, while Treaty United of Limerick play Shelbourne. All those games tomorrow, 10th of October, with 2 p.m. kickoff. So we said no Dervla Byrne just there, but she does sit with her Peamount United teammates at the top of the table. Shells and Cork in very, very tight, close proximity to them. If Shells can beat Treaty, they will move to the top of the table. So interesting weekend to see how that happens at the moment. Currently Peamount United 18 points from 7 games, while Shells 16 from 7. Cork City one further back, 15 points from their 7 fixtures so far. There will be action at underage level though, and that is Muireann Devaney of Manorhamilton will be representing Leitrim, while Sligo Rovers travel to Peamount United tomorrow evening at 6:30 p.m. The best luck to Muireann and her Sligo Rovers teammates as they look to pick up from what has been a fairly disappointing season for the side. 6:30 tomorrow evening in Peamount against one of the strongest teams in the division. So the best luck to Muireann in that encounter. A name that'll be well known to most sports fans in the county is that of Jack Gilheany. Normally, I suppose, talking about locally in Fenagh GAA circles, but has been making waves in another sport and another code of football, and that, of course, is rugby union. He joins me now to chat about his season so far. Jack, you're very welcome to the programme.
Thanks very much for having me, Brefty. I'm looking forward to it.
Now, we've had you on before from a Gaelic point of view, I think after you were beaten by Mull back in the group stages of the senior championship here in the county, but I suppose the last couple of weekends you've been mostly focused on your rugby career, start of the new Energia Community Series. You're in the Leinster branch of that with Old Belvedere, a fairly well-established name in the world of rugby union in the country.
Yeah, so the last few weeks I've been playing, kind of trying to juggle both. So it's my inter-county commitments with Leitrim and then my rugby commitments up in Dublin with Old Belvedere. So we've been training since the middle of August. We had our first game last weekend against Trinity. Got a good beating, unfortunately. But it was, I suppose, the first run out. Yes, then we were beaten by UCD, but a much improved performance. So again, we go next weekend now. We have Old Wesley. So it's kind of every week there's a new game to look forward to and a new game to prepare for. So really enjoy it at the moment. Let's
chat a bit about the differences between that, I suppose, elite sport, because you're playing at the elite level of both codes in the country at the moment. Old Belvedere, they're normally in Division 1B of the AIL, which is the second tier. I suppose we've had other AIL representation this season. Matthew Earley's with Sligo in 2B, which is effectively the fourth division. Yeah. What's the standard like? And because this is your first time playing at the senior level, having come out in 20s, or did you play a bit last season?
So I joined Old Belvedere once I left boarding school. And I played under 20s, but I got 2 AL caps that year, and that was Division 1B as well. Eddie O'Sullivan, actually the former Irish head coach, was our head coach at the time. Then last year, so my second year 20s, and I also got another 1 or 2 AL caps that season. Then last year, I kind of, I suppose Terry was on to me, so I committed to Leitrim Seniors. I was over on Erasmus in Rotterdam, so I suppose I had to kind of make some choice. So I used to come home every weekend for them. And then now this season, obviously, I'm out of under 20s, so I kind of have to have my full commitments with the senior team.
What was the reasoning for being in Rotterdam? And is it crazy to fly home every weekend?
Yeah, so it's just part of, I suppose, it's part of my college course. I'm doing global business in Trinity. So as part of your third year, you have the option to go abroad. You can go abroad for a full year or one semester. So I chose to go one semester. So I went from, well, it was supposed to be from January until the end of June. But unfortunately, due to COVID, it was cut short. So I was only there for 8 weeks. But yeah, I used to fly home. So I'd get the train from Rotterdam to Amsterdam, fly then from Amsterdam to Dublin, train from Dublin to Leitrim, and then train on a Friday night, and then fly back on a Monday morning after the league match.
And like that, obviously, not only the physical toll of that travelling, but the cost of that must be substantial enough. How did you manage that?
Yeah, well, Leitrim kind of paid for all the
travel expenses.
Yeah, travel expenses and all that was funded by Leitrim. But yeah, it was just the physical toll, and I suppose the mental toll did. I was only doing it for 8 weeks, I suppose, so maybe it was kind of the energy, had that energy to keep going for that time. I don't know if maybe it was going into the middle of June, it could be a different story, but I enjoyed it for the time I was doing it now, and it was worth it. I think we had a good run in the league. I know it's obviously not over yet, but I enjoyed it for that few weeks.
What was your introduction to rugby? Because obviously rugby, Carrick, I know, are around now, and in the north of the county they have the option of Sligo, although there's not that huge representation from the north of the county in Sligo Rugby Club at adult level at least. But how did you end up playing rugby? Was it a schools thing?
No, so when I was 7 or 8, I started off playing in Carrick Rugby Club here. We actually used to train out the front of Cartown. That was their playing fields at the moment. Then played in Leitrim Gaels for a while, and then they finally got their own facilities. Then when I was about 12 or 13, I moved to Longford Rugby Club, because I'm from Fenagh, so it's only about half an hour kind of the boat, so it doesn't really make much difference travel time. And they're obviously based in Leinster, so I suppose it'd be a bit more competition there. You're playing against bigger clubs. The likes of Mullingar and all those clubs are kind of bigger ones. Then when after I did my junior cert, I went to boarding school in Kildare, so I went to Clongowes. So obviously that's kind of quite infamous for rugby, and so I played senior cup with them, played 2 years of senior cup, and then after I left there I joined Old Belvedere, and I'm still there now, so I'm really enjoying it.
In terms of Old Belvedere, as you mentioned, up to this season you've had maybe 3 or 4 appearances spread out over 2 seasons, maybe season and a half. In terms of this season though, you've had a bright start. You played half on the first game, disappointing defeat, beaten again last week, but you played the full 80 minutes. How nice is it to now be kind of a real part of that squad, that it's not just a kind of we'll see what he's up to, you're actually starting?
Oh yeah, no, it's great. It was really good, really professional environment in the club. Like, you've really good. I think we've 3 or 4 kind of designated coaches. You have a backs coach, forwards coach, like Mike Ross, the former Irish prop, he's the forwards coach. Really good S&C. It's a really professional environment, and we're with I suppose I'd nearly be one of the younger guys on the team as well. I'm only 21. You'll be playing with guys who are 27, 28, so that kind of age group. So it is challenging. It kind of I suppose fast forwards your development as well. You're playing against a lot bigger guys, compared to what was maybe come against in football and all. But I like the physicality is probably one thing that I like, and it's good to test yourself out against kind of the top players that you can come up against.
And of course you're a centre, wearing 12 at the weekend, so that would be traditionally, I suppose for the listeners who are listening who might not have watched that much rugby, it's the Gordon Darcy position just inside Brian O'Driscoll. Is that your normal position, or where would you normally find yourself?
Yeah, well, in schools I played at fullback and number 15, but I think I prefer centre would be my preferred position if I was to choose one. You're always kind of in the thick of things, and I suppose I wouldn't be seen as more kind of physical kind of hard runner. I'd be more kind of distributor, play the ball out. So, but I think that's probably my favourite position because you're kind of involved most. Whereas at 15, you can kind of not hide from the game, but the game kind of pass you by without kind of getting involved because you're in the backfield. So centre would definitely be my favourite position. Let's
talk about differences between the two, and it mightn't go down to too well around here, but of course it's very unlikely that you'll be able to play at those levels for many years without serious clashes, given the intensity of the two codes. Do you have a preference, and why? Does your heart or your head have different preferences in terms of rugby versus Gaelic football? I love playing both sports equally. I suppose for me, because I went to a boarding school, a lot of my friends would kind of be from Dublin. I have a big social life in Dublin. My girlfriend's from Dublin, so I suppose when you're playing inter-county football, you're forced to be kind of coming home, and you're nearly giving up every weekend between the 1st of January and say the end of June to whenever you kind of get through in the county championship. So for me, that's probably just not something that I really enjoy that much. Whereas rugby, we got our fixtures list there at the start of August, and we got all of our fixtures right through to the end of May. And I know what weekends I have off, and so if we have a weekend off, we train on Tuesday and Thursday, but we don't train that weekend at all. So I think you can kind of, I suppose more the culture around it, you can kind of plan your life a bit more. So that's something which really attracts me to rugby as opposed to maybe inter-county football. But I'll definitely still be playing club football with Fenagh, and the summers are always free. So I suppose they work well together with club and rugby, because obviously rugby stops say at the start of May, and that's kind of when club football only heats up, and then when club football is dying down, that's kind of when only rugby's coming up. But I suppose it won't really be possible to play the inter-county level and rugby either at the same time. You will see out this season though with Leitrim?
Yeah, I will.
All clashes aside, depending on how the fixtures fall as we go on for the next few weeks. Let's talk about some other people that are involved in the rugby, because there's a couple of different routes through rugby, because when people talk about rugby or soccer versus Gaelic, it always comes down in most people's discussions around a pub table to money. And the reality is that the vast majority of players, particularly at club level, are not getting a penny for their efforts. In fact, they're probably paying subs and memberships and bringing in sponsorships, player sponsorships, to actually just be at the club. So money doesn't really come into it on that in the level that you're at the moment. It does maybe in the provincial game, but if we look at, say, 2 or 3 players that are playing at a decent level in rugby now, I know Jack Matthews here from Carrick and Shannon is kind of making his way through the channels in Leinster as well, but Shane from Bornacoola, Shane Mallon, has made an impact at academy level in Leinster, and he's in with UCD now and they're under 20 Sky. You're playing AIL in Division 1B. Matthew Earley's got 2 seasons under his belt at Division 2B. And there's some players starting to make waves, but the route that Shane, for example, has taken versus the route you've taken, you weren't involved with academies coming up through. No. Your brother was.
Tom was at Leinster 18s,
but Shane was Leinster 18s the following year. But in terms of that route, is there a route back into the professional game for you, or are you even interested in that?
It's not, there probably wouldn't be. There is always a route. I mean, it happened. A guy who was 2 years above me in Clongowes, Rowan Osborne, he never made any Leinster, well, not that I know, he wasn't in Leinster Academy, and now he's a full-on professional contract because he performed well in the IL with Trinity. So there is a route there. It's probably, I suppose it's kind of something you say you're not interested in, but then if the offer came, obviously. But no, at the moment, I'm just loving playing, not a social level, it's still a high level of rugby with that social element, and then you kind of still focus on your career, professional career in terms of work and all that. So, it wouldn't be something I'd be interested in, but the same, it's easy saying that now. But there is definitely still a route in. I mean, Rowan's a prime example where if you just perform well with your club in the AIL, you will get noticed, and especially I suppose that he was a scrum half, so I think Leinster had 1 or 2 injuries, and now he's actually a full-time professional contract with them. So there is definitely a route there.
But is that a route that... Is there a preference? Because I look back, say, if we compare it to the Leaving Cert, and it's all the rage at the moment in terms of discussion about routes through college, and sometimes I would advocate to people who aren't quite sure what they want, don't commit to a 4-year programme. Go do a 2-year programme and then get a 3rd year and a 4th year add-on. Is that idea of going and getting first team rugby where every result matters to the club in the AIL versus maybe the academy where you don't get as many games, you don't get to maybe get that rough and tumble of games that actually matter when you do get games?
Yeah, there is a thing like a lot of academy players are obviously associated with a club, so we'd have a few of them. We'd have Martin Maloney, was there last year, he was with us. So like every kind of player in the academy would be associated, and then if they weren't getting game time, say with Leinster A or with the Leinster senior team, they would be then sent back to their club to play on a weekend to try to get that game, try and get game time under their belts, I suppose. But yeah, of course, like every club will have their own interests as well. So the club will obviously want to try and say with us in Old Belvedere, we'll try to win every game that we come up against. So like you're not going to be putting on players maybe who don't fit into the system and all that. So yeah, that is obviously a tough one for players in that situation. But I'm sure Leinster and all, that's kind of up to them to manage that. So they seem to be doing okay at it so far.
In terms of the season ahead, a half season to come from January in the AIL, is that a concern that it's only one round of fixtures, you play each team once and there's no promotion or relegation? Is that a bit of a dead rubber season?
Yeah, that was one of the causes of concern. I think that came out. Now, in fairness, I don't think any team is taken as a dead rubber season. I think because if you take one season off, you start losing players, you start losing momentum, and all of a sudden you probably end up getting relegated next season. So you still have to keep your foot in the gas. It is disappointment because it does take away the element of competition to a certain extent. Because obviously now, if you win or lose a game, it doesn't really matter because you're going to be in the same position next year regardless. But I think the way we're looking at it is more kind of we're building towards next season, or we're building this season anyway, but use it as a building block towards next season because you can't afford to lose up ground in one season. It's too high a level to slip up for one season, so you need to keep building every year.
What's the atmosphere like in Old Belvedere at the moment?
That's great. That's another thing about rugby, is a great social aspect. Now I know it's unfortunate the way the bars and clubs are all closed up in Dublin at the moment, but usually after a match, be free beer, free food up in the clubhouse afterwards. A real kind of...
I better stop you because you might have to hold you in.
It's a real club atmosphere. You kind of think because there's guys coming from all over. I'm from Leitrim, lads from Dublin, lads from everywhere. But it's a real kind of close. It is like a community in itself. Everyone will be up in the bar afterwards. So hopefully we can get back to that stage. Hopefully at some stage when the restrictions allow us to do that. Yeah, no, because I've been at a few Sligo games and they've got players from Samoa. They've 2 new Brazilian international players playing with them as well. It's mad to see all these different, as well as within Ireland, all these different nationalities all mixing together and playing at different levels. I think there's a Canadian guy on the wing for them who's an absolute flyer. So it's great to kind of see and experience that mixing as well that maybe we don't get on a local level all that often. In terms of some child maybe who's in the county who maybe plays a bit of rugby, whether it's in Sligo or Longford or Carrick, and has ideas of maybe going down that route, what would your advice be to maybe an 11 or 12-year-old who's making that decision, or maybe enjoys every sport he's playing, whether it's soccer, rugby, Gaelic? Well, I'd say play every sport that you can for as long as you can, because each sport does complement one another. It probably gets, now when you get to I'm 21, so maybe you just get to this age, you have to start making sacrifices, which I'm probably in that position I have to now. But play every sport for as long as you can and enjoy every sport, because it doesn't last forever. So keep doing it as long as you can.
Excellent. Well, listen, tough start to the season, so we won't dwell on that too much, but congratulations, I suppose, on becoming an integral part of that first team squad in a club as esteemed as Old Belvedere. It's no easy task, so congratulations on that. Best luck with the rest of the inter-county season as well, and I'm sure we'll be chatting to you in the coming weeks and months.
Thanks very much, Bethany.
And that, folks, is all we have time for today. Thank you very much to Jack for dropping in and having a chat with us about his rugby career alongside what has been a very, very successful career for Leitrim as well in the Gaelic football jersey. So the best of luck to him and to everybody involved in games, the limited number of games that are still surviving through the coronavirus lockdown at the moment. Hopefully everything goes ahead and there aren't any future problems, and to everybody else, get what you can online. Watch the games, stream the games. Please don't try and get into games you won't be allowed into most, if not all, fixtures. It's not safe, and we would ask you to protect yourselves and protect those taking part in these games, and just respect the virus And please keep out of harm's way and keep yourselves safe. It's a bit of a shorter one than normal this week, but I think we'll be back to something a bit more normal in the next couple of weeks. We will be talking to individual people ahead of each of the games in the coming weeks, and we'll try and go a bit more in depth than maybe we're used to. Talk to you on Monday after a busy weekend of elite sport across the country.